welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we're going to talk about how to draw a red wolf. So, let's get arting. Alright, here is the red wolf. They have multiple colors. They have kind of a brown, and then a gray and white, and some of their gray is like a brownish gray, or it has a lot of brown mixed in at the top that goes grayer on the sides, so I'm just going to get started with the brown. Like always, you do a stroke and then put a line in between, and you try to match the strokes to how long the hair is. But the hair by the nose typically is the shortest hair on the animal. Now sometimes with dogs and wolves, you'll see their mouths kind of push up a bit here, which is why I indicated it. They also sometimes have a boxier muzzle. Not always, but in this case it did. So, the cheeks kind of dip down and cover part of the chin, but some of this, into the side here is also still part of the chin. So it's just a matter of stopping the lines when it comes down to here, and then stopping them again when it comes into this section, because this is separate from the chest, which is kind of what this is down here. And then of course the cheek is separate from the chin, so you have a little bit of that happening. And then we'll, do the same thing on this side. Now they, also have some black nose, and there's a little bit of black by the eyes, a few black spots. It's not a lot. I might still have to fill in a little bit by the eye, because there's basically some black right around the eye that's gonna sort of be right around the the edge of the eye, and so to help, I might need to do that, but I might be able to do that with the iris when I do the eyes, so we'll kind of see how that pans out. For now, I'm not going to draw on the black. We'll get started with the highlights and shadows. I'm going to start with the brown, and I'm going to have the light source coming from over here. Like always, that means it's above and in front of, not behind or next to. And this is just, full pin pressure. Once we get into some of, this mixing over here, from the brownish gray to the darker gray, I need to really blend these two together, because there's this, it's a gentle changing of color. And really what it is, when you look at their furs, it's just a whole lot of multicolor in sort of their forehead and to the sides of their face. And so I'll need to mix in the colors with each other, but for the brown and the white, not so much. For the light brown, I should say. This light brown and the white, those are going to be solidly those colors. So just full pin pressure, following the lines we just created with the sketching step, right, with all of these little lines. That sort of sorted out the fur direction, so now we can just put full pin pressure to it. So right, always considering the light source, and I know I talk about this sometimes, but the cheek over here um, is going to have some light on it. I just do it in shadow first to get to have better control over where the highlight is going. But the nose isn't big enough to block the light source, so certainly it's going to be rounding away more on this side than this one is, but there's still going to be a bit of burst of highlight on this cheek because it's going to be pushing forward enough that it's going to catch the light. Now this is the browner gray first, and then we'll transition that over to a more solid gray as it comes down the side of his face. So one way to temper off a strong transition between colors, if you want it to be more subtle, is to just, take the particularly the lighter color and draw into the other one. You can see here I've tempered off this, right here's the line between the two, but I pushed this lighter brown into the darker, which just sort of tempers that color change. It depends on the animal, but it can make it look more natural. Sometimes you don't want it to. Sometimes there's a very strong contrast, and sometimes you want it to be a little bit more of a gentle transition. So now the ears, back side of the ears right on this side in shadow with the highlight coming from the right. And on this side, you're going to have this back side in highlight. And then as we work our way around, right, you're starting to get to the interior part of the ear, so some of this edge would be catching highlight. But all edges are in shadow, so even though this back side is going to be in highlight, the edge will be in shadow, and then it's going to kick into highlight. And then depending on, depends on the animal here, but depending on how low the ear goes, some of this edge would also potentially be in shadow. Likewise, this inner edge is going to be in shadow because that's now rounding back in. So you have this section that's rounding away from the light source. And then we have the white of the ears. The ears are pretty fluffy. You see it in some animals, right, where you have some big fluffy white coming in this way, and then you have the thick hair that'll sort of stick out a little bit more on this side. So this just kind of will be going into shadow a bit and kind of rounding down that way more than it will be. Some of it's going to be in highlight on some of these edges, but then you have, the bigger, fluffier hair coming up this way. I'm going to readjust the eye a bit. This one flattens out a bit more, this one rounds, so I'm going to round this one a bit more. Luckily they're not very, it's not quite a lot of, it's not a lot of strokes because it was black to begin with. we're gonna get the nose, and then we'll do the eyes. Now the nose is black, so as I fill this in, you know, I'm gonna be holding back pin pressure even still, trying to make the gray look black. I'm just filling in some of these, the darker lines to kind of make this a more seamless transition. Right now it looks almost cartoonish where you have this really strong shadow surrounding the mouth, and I don't want it to appear like a cartoon, so I'm just softening the amount of black that's right up by the neck versus the chin and the cheeks. Doesn't have to be much, just has to be enough that it sort of tempers that look a bit and it'll look more natural. Yeah, I think that makes it look a lot better. Doesn't have that cartoon look to it anymore. So if you take it off, the difference here, it almost looks cartoony and flat, but by adding in just a little bit of extra lines to areas that were in shadow, both above and below, so down in here where the chin's casting a shadow and here where the shadow's created by the figure rounding, by adding just that little bit, you sort of temper that a bit and make it look a little bit more natural. Okay, now they have amber eyes, amber or yellow, or we're just gonna go with kind of this brownish. Alright, with the light source coming from the right, we're going to put just a burst of highlight like we always do against the pupil on the opposite side. And then we're going to, you know, put the highlight on the side of that and then all the way underneath. Right, so connecting to that burst of light here, and then all the way underneath the eye is going to be highlight on the side of the light source. Going into shadow by this side of the pupil. And then going in shadow up at the edge, and then on the whole edge of the eye, the whole circular edge, but the edge by the black goes into shadow. Same thing on this side, burst of light, and then highlight all the way underneath. I'm going to add the light flare. This light flare is always on the side of the light source. I typically start with the eye that's in more shadow. You always kind of want it in an area that's still in highlight and against the pupil. I'm just going to fill it with the foreground color, which I've already changed that off-white. Do the same thing on this side. And now as I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to taper off the shadow over here just a little bit more. You can kind of see on this side it looks nice and gentle. On this one it looks a little bit more jagged or harsh, too harsh of a transition. I'm going to taper these little dark spots just a little bit more. They are there, but they're not quite this pronounced, I don't think. The one thing about drawing, you know, like if you can see something's off, so can someone else. So it's always better to go in and just fix it if something looks wrong. Sometimes that means you have to erase out and start something over. You know, like I had to erase the eye and then rebuild in some of that again, although that wasn't a lot. But sometimes it just means working on it, you know, adding some more in or working on something until it seems right. Because I don't think I'll have to start over or erase these out completely. I think it's just a matter of tempering them more than they are. Alright, so that is how you draw a red wolf. I hope that was helpful. In the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I've done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.